What's up, everybody? Mel here again with another episode on credit cards. We are going to talk more with Eric and Stash to find out about migrations. So if you haven't watched the previous ones, go check that out, then come back here. So credit card migrations, why are they such a hot topic?
When isn't data migration a hot topic, right? A major consideration we have when we're cutting over is how can we minimize the impact to our customers' business and their customers. All migrations have some level of complexity, but credit card migrations specifically are much higher stakes and harder to perform.
I have lived in this world and I know there are a lot of expectations from the customer around credit card migration, but we need to arm every Sunriser with all the points they need to talk our customers through their option.
Exactly, and like Stash said, what we're really trying to do here is just minimize the customer impact. And so understanding what the true business requirements are. For example, do we need to migrate open orders? How will returns be handled after the fact? For instance, do we need to be able to return against a credit card token, for example? So really understanding the foundation of what those expectations are will then drive what do we need to do in terms of that token conversion and that open order migration that's associated with it.
So is there ever an option to do nothing?
Well, as Sunrisers, we never do nothing. So even if we're not migrating this data, we're still going to usher our customers through the change management process.
So can you guys tell us more about what that change management process is?
Sure. I mean, we got to make sure, again, that we're minimizing the impact to the customer, and that's Sunrise's customer as well as the end customer there. So it's really about change management and good communication so they know what to expect. So this impacts organizations or departments within the organization like customer service, the order management team, even at the warehouse level. We've got to make sure that there's continuity of those processes there. So for example, getting the orders out the door that may have been sort of in flight, what's the plan to make sure that we don't have issues with payment processing on those? Also, if a customer walks in 2 months down the road with a return, how do we properly take care of those customers? So really identifying what those process flows are and make sure everything's buttoned up to be sure that if we don't have that credit card token on file, can we continue to fulfill the orders? Can we return goods? Can we take care of the customer?
So the big burning question here, should you migrate credit card?
Define credit cards.
Oh.
Right? Because we have the card on file is its own token, and then all those auths, captures, those are different token transactions as well. And there's a big difference between migrating those two.
Oh, okay, because most people, when we say credit card migrations, are just thinking those tokens.
Because think of the card on file, the customer's card on file, that's master data. And that's pretty easy to migrate because it's a more straightforward token and it's master data.
Okay.
Bringing in those auths, captures, and so you can refund or whatever, that's akin to migrating InventTrans. It's very difficult, very risky. If you don't have that all lined up, you're not going to be able to do a referenced return and back to the original card because you need a capture to refund against.
I see. So what is the advice for those two different types of migrating, yes or no?
Well, I think they have to ask themselves, is the legacy credit card processor the same as the New World credit card processor, right?
It has a lot to do with it. And, this is not the first time that bank or that processor will have done that. So there's definitely processes in place to where if a customer is moving from, say, Chase Payment Tech over to Adyen, as an example, they can definitely assist with that conversion process. But do you really need to? You have to ask yourself that question. Is it worth the complexity and the risk to the project?
Yeah, I remember we did that conversion, and it was a nail biter because they just gave us a file, and you don't know if it's good until you actually buy something with it, right? That was such a nail biter.
Exactly. So good to have that stuff planned out, of course, to thoroughly test it and to coordinate with all of the parties that are involved there.
Yeah, and also if you didn't, I see that as an opportunity for cleanup because there's tons of stale tokens out there anyway. If you don't do that migration, you could clean out a lot of junk from the system too. There's opportunity for cleanup.
Good point. So do we have any strategies on how to communicate this change to the end customer?
Yeah, and I think communicating early and often is important. So out of the legacy system, for instance, you could even start to put messaging on packing slips, messaging on the existing website in advance of the actual cutover and go live of D365, and even just working with the customer service organization. So as they're having a conversation with the customer, they can start to inform them what to expect in the future.
So I can tell you from personal experience that our customers often have anxiety about making the returns process harder for their end customers. What advice do you have there?
Absolutely. So it's very common that a customer will push for e-com and direct open order migration because they want the refund process down the line to be as smooth as possible.
Yeah.
But the problem is, in order to do a referenced return against the original payment, you have to have the auth and capture history done perfectly.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like migrating InventTrans, but for credit cards. So it's very difficult and very risky. So the best thing to do for everyone is to push for a clean cutover.
So Eric, remind us what a clean cutover is.
Clean cutover typically involves a temporary pause, and that affects warehouse operations, e-commerce, customer service, and making sure that while we're converting over, those operations are halted. And then once D365 is now the new system in place, we start operating in there in a clean fashion. And we understand that this is a big consideration for the customer, and that's why we need to confirm and plan this out months in advance. But ultimately, we feel like this is the simplest and safest approach.
I just want to thank you both for being here in the studio and helping me out with this. I know it's a large and important topic, right? All right, see you on the next episode of Sunrise Compass. See you later.